马耳他移民局的前局长焦斯先生。那么其实我们很想知道，就是未来马耳他移民政策会是一个什么样，会不会进一步的去收紧政策呀？在选择公立学校还是选择国际学校上？目前马耳他租房和购房两种方式嘛。那如果说是我们准备买房的话那您有什么建议？它现在审理速度到底是个什么样子的？
The world at the moment is going through uncertain times, difficult times, and we do not know what the new world is emerging. But the golden days of globalization, where people could go from one country to the other, I think we have a period of transition. In my opinion, it would make even more sense to consider a small country like Malta, because we are not in the main currents. We are a small part of Europe. Foreigners in Malta are still very welcome. And this is why now we get, I would say, about 20-25% of the population living in Malta are in fact expatriates.
Yes, I think one has to understand the whole market in Europe for residence and citizenship. Let's start with the residence. As you know, the market for residents in Europe in the last couple of years has become more difficult. There were countries like Portugal which have changed their conditions. Ireland practically stopped the program. Greece increased the amount of investment required. So these couple of years have been very good for Malta, and we have had a significant amount of applications for the residence program. And this has meant that the cost of operating, of adding resources, personnel, office space, etc., and also to make sure that the processing of applications is faster, has induced the agency to increase some of the costs of application. We still think that Malta is still very competitive in terms of the investment required to obtain residence in the country. So overall, the Malta residency program is still very competitive.
非常感谢姚斯先生刚才的解释啊。其实很多人来到马耳他都是因为这个学校教育。那如果是我们中国客户的话，来到马耳他，我们在选择公立学校还是选择国际学校上，您有什么建议吗？
Yes, you are right. One of the big benefits of Malta is that we are an English-speaking language. Besides that, our education system is based on the English education system, and it is of a very high level. Is there a difference between public and private schools? First of all, I have to say, although we have a number of private and international schools, which they have tends to be relatively limited. So there is always a big demand for these posts. Obviously, they are not cheap, but compared to many other private education institutions in Europe, but also in other countries, they tend to be very competitive. The second consideration is that our public schools too are of very high standard. So the difference in education between private and public schools in Malta is not all that significant. It is more a question that you can get some very good schools in the private sector and you can get some very good schools in the public sector. So it depends on the school itself, its particular situation, the teachers there, but generally speaking, education in both the private schools and the public schools is of a very high standard and allows the students to continue with their studies both in Malta at university level or college level, as well as internationally in the UK, in Europe, in the United States, without any problem whatsoever.
还有一个问题，就是目前马耳他呢，其实我们知道它的移民方式主要有租房和购房两种方式嘛。这几年的房地产市场也是非常兴旺的。那如果说是我们准备买房的话啊，我们中国客户，那您有什么建议吗？
You are right to the residence options, and an applicant can either rent or they can buy a property. For me, I think it's a question of what financial resources the applicant has available. Renting is a cost because you are paying money, but you get only a temporary benefit out of it. If the applicant has the resources to buy, my recommendation is that they should buy a property in Malta because land is very scarce. So land in Malta, it always keeps increasing. The price always keeps rising. And you can compare this to situations in Hong Kong, in Singapore, which are also small island states, and where land is very limited. So the price of property keeps going up, buying the property, because it is a very good investment.
现在呢，就是马耳他这边因为是一种捐款加租房或者买房的方式，那么现在其实大家比较关心的有一个问题，就是它现在审理速度到底是个什么样子的？
Because as I mentioned earlier on, the agency has invested in more people and more office space, etc. So the process now has been reduced again. It's not yet down to 6 months as the agency had promised initially, but I would say it's close to 8 to 9 months now. So the process has been streamlined, and I think now it is much more quick than about a year ago.
关注老陶，投资移民不迷路，谢谢大家。